Welcome, everyone, to OMA's 64th annual meeting, planning celebrations of life, which will bring comfort to you and those you love. When we begin, let's just review a few Zoom instructions. We've muted all of you and do want you to stay on mute. If you need to ask a question, you'll see it across the bottom of your screen. There is a chat box, and you can type your questions into those when you think of them. If we have an answer, and we can answer you in the chat box. Otherwise, we will hold them for when we have a question and answer period afterwards. Please only use the raise hand feature if you're prompted to do so. Otherwise, use the chat function. And if you don't like to use the chat function, just write down your questions, and then we'll open up the floor and you'll be able to speak. Questions will be answered after the speaker makes her presentation. I do want to tell you that we are recording this meeting. And so if you don't want your picture on the screen or your name on the screen, just remove your name. But you could also use your video camera, the little symbol at the bottom of your screen to stop showing your picture. I want to thank the sponsors of this meeting. Our gold level sponsor is the Clearstone Memorial Partners, a locally owned chain that is down the valley. We enjoy working with them, and we appreciate them being sponsors yet again this year. And our silver level sponsor, Real Estate Brokers, specializing in historic and architecturally significant properties, Dan Volker team. Hope you'll look them up. Their website is very, very interesting. And again, we are grateful to Kai Perm for returning as a sponsor at the bronze level. I'm a great supporter of credit unions myself, and belong to a couple. And now I want to introduce our board of directors. I am Susan Robinson. I'm president. And we have Bill Harris, who is vice president and immediate past treasurer. Jay Weiss, who is representing the Southern Oregon contingent. Kathy Hall, who is the coordinator of our All's Well That Ends Well workshops. And Joanne Petrie, who is our newest board member and our treasurer. I also want to say that if you stick with this to the bitter end of the meeting, hopefully not bitter end, but till the end of the meeting, that we do have door prizes for you, and we will do the drawing. You have to be present to win a door prize. I won't belabor the history of OMA, as we've gone over it before. You have the slides before you, but suffice it to say that the Oregon Memorial Association is one of the oldest funeral consumer and education organizations in the country. We're only a few years younger than our sister organization, the People's Memorial Association, just north of us in Washington State. We used to work hand in glove with them, relying on discounts from the same chain of mortuaries from Seattle to Southern Oregon, right down the I-5 corridor and Willamette Valley. Along the way, we joined forces with Funeral Consumer Alliance chapters across the country to persuade the Federal Trade Commission to adopt the funeral rule. This law protects funeral consumers and mandates fair practices by mortuaries, including the requirement of giving out printed general price lists. I'm sorry, I'm moving my screen around. When you join OMA, you are not only promised discounts, but you support an organization that continues to advocate for funeral consumers, strives to keep up with changes in the death care industry, and provides helpful, accurate information and education to the public on all the newest options. Washington and Oregon have laid the groundwork for consumer-oriented funeral practices in our two states. And with the environmental consciousness of the Northwest, it is no coincidence that Washington was the first state to allow body composting, followed within days by Colorado and then Oregon. In other words, we are still leaders in rethinking end of life and body disposition options. And now, OMA has broadened our focus from mostly affordability, not at all away from affordability, but we now also consider sustainable options for body disposition in a way we didn't used to. Some of the older members have told me that they used to call us the Box and Burn Society because we talked so much about cremation. But now we find that flame cremation uses a lot of resources and it pollutes the air. So we are asking questions about our legacy, whether it's an important part of our legacy to each do less damage to the environment when we decide how to dispose of our bodies. Can we make it more affordable to choose aquamation rather than flame cremation? And I mean, one question is, does driving a body halfway across Washington for that process, does it pollute the air as much as just being cremated locally? Or is green burial the right choice? And I would ask, who might want to reclaim me as compost and let me fertilize their flowers? Do you see how interesting this work is? I like to say that we put the fun in funeral. Well, it's not all hilarity. But we do learn a lot, and it's very satisfying to work with a group of very dedicated volunteer board members and our wonderful office assistant, Margot. I hope you will seriously consider becoming a volunteer with OMA. As has been our intention, we are keeping the business portion of this annual meeting short. I'm sorry, though, that there won't be an election this year of any new board members. The organization does not run itself, and we very much need new ideas, skills, and energy. The board meets once a month, but would meet less often if we had enough volunteers for active committee work. Do you have legal or administration or financial experience or fundraising? And what about marketing and using social media? I mean, think about it. How can we reach younger people or those in midlife who are now caring for their parents unless we use newer ways to communicate? If you have ideas and contacts for outreach and marketing, by all means, come on board. The thing we have realized, friends, is that we will not work ourselves out of a job. People are dying and not prepared for it. But it takes more than just a handful of us to keep this ship afloat. I am proud to report that we have held an end-of-life planning workshop in most months last year. And for that, we must thank the very dedicated and efficient Kathy Hall. Kathy not only fulfills OMA's board's responsibilities faithfully, but for the past 8 years has scheduled all of our All's Well That Ends Well workshops and led many of them. They're mostly held online, but in person several times a year. But as you can imagine, serving the entire state is a challenge. Kathy is one to go the extra mile, and through the years she has taken the workshop to Bend, Salem, and Corvallis. And this April she traveled from Portland to Klamath Falls by train to hold an in-person workshop with our Southern Oregon board member Jay Weiss. Hundreds, literally hundreds, of OMA members and others are beneficiaries of Kathy's efforts, and we are grateful. That said, we need a few more volunteers to lead the All's Well That Ends Well workshops. And Kathy needs help arranging more places to hold them and groups to reach. We hope to have at least a dozen people attending every workshop, which means getting the word out more widely. If you could be an ambassador in your neighborhood or town, forwarding a prepared email or posting OMA flyers at churches, senior centers, and libraries, and making sure that OMA brochures are left in new places, what a gift you would be. And listen, being a workshop leader really doesn't require a PhD. The Oregon-specific workbook speaks for itself and provides a comprehensive checklist for end-of-life and body disposition planning. We will train you and we'll pair you with one of our experienced workshop facilitators, and you'll spend a few hours 3 or 4 times a year just doing a great deal of good, and you will learn a lot along with the participants. I am so pleased that you have chosen to attend this meeting and want to assure you who are regular donors that your gifts are truly appreciated and stewarded carefully. These gifts enable us to employ our very part-time office assistant who answers our phone calls and helps the board and volunteers to work with our participating mortuaries and cemeteries. Margot enhances every aspect of OMA's work, and working with her is truly one of the delights of being an OMA volunteer. We are very aware that so many worthy causes and nonprofits need your time and money. But please consider joining us as an OMA volunteer, board member, workshop leader, or a local ambassador. Now, let's hear from our newest board member and another volunteer extraordinaire, our treasurer, Joanne Four.
Hi, I'm Joanne Four, the treasurer of OMA. As you can see from this first slide, in 2024, over half of OMA's revenue came from donations at 57%, with memberships the next largest category. We really rely on your support to fund OMA's mission of helping Oregon consumers find meaningful and affordable end-of-life services. The next chart shows that the salary of our part-time office assistant is the largest expense that we have. As those of you who have worked with Margot know, she does a wonderful job doing a wide variety of tasks, including bookkeeping, processing memberships, updating the website, preparing our newsletters, and assisting members with their questions or concerns. She keeps the organization running smoothly from her home office. Printing and postage are the next largest expense category, which includes our annual newsletter mailing. It goes out to thousands of people on our mailing list. The next slide lists a few of the options that we have available from donations that were made to OMA for burial plots or mausoleum crypts. You can find a little bit more information about what's available You can get these at a discount, and you can check the website or you can contact the office to find out how to proceed if you're interested in one of these options. The revenue and expense charts on the next that I presented represent the results for our calendar year 2024. The budget that we have for 2025 is essentially break even. But at the end of last month, which is September, we are behind in our donations for this year. So please consider making a contribution, as all of your donations help us provide our services. If you haven't made a contribution so far this year, here are some options that you might be able to be interested in. And again, we're available if you have any questions. You can give a gift from your IRA account, donate a gift to stock, consider a bequest, or as Susan also mentioned, if you are interested at all, you can volunteer your time. And we could definitely be interested in working with you either on a short-term project or becoming a member of the board. Anything that you think that you might be able to do related to OMA or our marketing or other needs that we have, we would love to hear from you. So thank you so very much for your donations and for being a member or a supporter of OMA.
So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker. Joanne was actually a speaker. Well, she was on a panel with another person way back in 2019 when we had our last in-person annual meeting. And we've never forgotten her her presentation, her joy, her such animated animation and genuine care for people. And so we are so glad that she is still working and still around in the community doing this work. And we are glad to hear from her today. Joanne is a nationally certified bereavement facilitator. She has been a hospice chaplain and bereavement coordinator for 40 years and is still working. She is known as a counselor, author, video producer, radio host, podcaster, and teacher. She's the founder and director of an organization called One to Another. It's a nonprofit organization based near Portland. She actively engages with those who have experienced loss and is regularly asked to facilitate memorials, funerals, and graveside gatherings. Inspired by the experience of her first husband's sudden death, Joanne's been teaching grief release classes since 1985. She also facilitates a large grief support group twice a month at the Pioneer Community Center in Oregon City. And for 30 years, you may have heard Joanne hosting a radio program on KPDQ. She married Ron Petrie 27 years ago, and he joined her on the radio program. Sadly, Ron died on March 9th this year. 2 years ago, Joanne began recording a weekly podcast series on the topic of healing from grief. She also hosts a monthly friend-to-friend meeting for women who are looking to make new friends and deepen existing friendships. Unlike the grief support groups, this gathering is focused on social and spiritual connection. And we'll post what you see on your screen, Joanne's website. You can learn more about Joanne and her ministry by visiting there. We're glad to hear from you, Joanne. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see, am I supposed to start something or is my face going to come up?
Nope, you can start talking and Charlie will spotlight you, but you can go ahead and
Okay, I'll go ahead. I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. And I just appreciate all the work that you're doing And I know that funerals, memorials, anything that we can do to help people who've gone through loss is a gift. So what I want to start with is one of my slides, and it's my definition. It's the one at the top, if you can bring it down a little bit. I want to talk about grief, and it says that grief is the process of putting back together the pieces of a broken heart. A hole so deep in the middle of your heart that it aches and hurts, and you think it will never stop hurting. It's like heartache. And I made up that definition after my late husband died after we had been married 25 years, and he was 46 and I was 45. And so as I've gone through the grieving process, learned a lot about how to handle my own grief, I've also in a place to help other people work their grief and find some answers and healings. All of us want to look at grief thinking it's just a straight line. You know, when somebody says, "How are you?" You say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine." Well, you know what? Nobody's fine that's in grief. And the other picture shows how grief actually works. It's sort of like in a ball going around. It's sort of like being on an emotional roller coaster. You're up and down, up and down. One day you feel like you're doing great, and the next day you feel horrible, and there's not any nice, neat, orderly thing about grief. And I have two sayings that I say on a regular basis. They are not in your information, but the first one is this: grief gets better when you are ready to let it get better. Grief gets better when you are ready to let it get better. And the other one is time does not heal grief. It's what you do with your time. You see, the thing is, in the whole thing about grief, is that we think that sometimes if we just don't talk about it, if we don't do the work, it goes away, but it doesn't go away. We have to decide when we're going to give ourselves permission to do this work. So I want to talk to you about what I've learned over these years about how valuable it is to have some kind of a service, whether it's a memorial service with maybe up at Willamette National because he was a veteran, in a funeral home, any different places that we can have services. I want to talk about the value of it because I believe there's a lot of value in understanding why do we have services. First, it is, I believe, the vital healing force in the lives of grieving families. We hear over and over again that people don't want to do one. But once I began to work with people who say, "Oh, I want to have a service, but I want it to be short, I want it to be simple, there, whatever service you want to have, let me help you with it. But let's see the value in the lives of all of us who are grieving." And I think also it's important to understand there's a gift of participation. The more involvement, the better. The more we can get people to talk, get a family meeting, let's talk about what you want to do. The more participation, the more meaningful the service will be. And I think it also gives the gift of reality and closure. As we go through having a service and the people begin to share, you can hear them saying, "And now I'm going to say goodbye," not to the person, but to the fact that the relationship is over. So it gives meaning, and also I think some people really need to see the viewing of the body, because what I found out is that there are people that need to see that, and there's others that don't. I've done many services with an open casket, and I can tell you, when the funeral director comes down to open the casket, that as people stand to view it, there's many that walk out. They do not want to see the body, but there's a few that do, and for them, that can be meaningful and important. I think it also helps us have a safe place to connect. We need to connect with each other. And mostly when we have any kind of a service, people are surprised at all the people that come. Oh, some people came that were childhood friends, or people have flown in from many different places to connect, to say to the family and to the person who's died, they were meaningful to me and I wanted to be here. And so connection is really important. And then, I find that people need sometimes to toast, and they can toast to release that person, maybe if it's going to be sent out to sea or whatever they want to do. Sometimes that's a very important thing. And I do believe it should be personalized, but also organized. It's chaotic if you don't have a plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we need to have some kind of organization. And as the people come together to talk about how we're going to do this, I know that family time is the gift of presence, the presence of being with other members of the family. And I think that listening allows something to happen. Sometimes I'll just say, tell me about the person. And so I'll just listen. And they begin to share stories that maybe they haven't shared for a long time. Listening is a wonderful gift to give to a family. And then I do believe that we need to be available to do both religious and non-religious services. The reason why we don't have services, and I find this very often, is that people say they don't want to spend the money. It costs too much. And yet it's amazing to me, maybe for a wedding, they'll spend $25,000 or more, but they don't see the value in investing money into a service of some sort. And I hear this too. They say to me, I don't believe anybody's going to come. And so they're afraid to talk about the death, and they're afraid that nobody's going to come. I'm going to share with you a story about this in just a minute. And then sometimes clergy kill funerals. I've been to so many services where clergy have gotten up there and never even mentioned the name of the person and have done everything to talk about their own loss or read a scripture and preach a sermon. And so I believe that sometimes going to churches that they've lost their influence. But I have learned this, that people leave church, but they come back for weddings and funerals. And the truth of the matter is that some funerals are very boring. So I believe you have to develop something into it to make it personal. So you can do that whether or not clergy does a good job or not. And so as we think about doing creativity in services, I do believe that ritual makes a difference. And ritual is a symbolic meaning which has been observed, as we're going to observe a funeral, we're going to observe a gathering, whatever it is. And sometimes what we need to understand that in the gathering we have, we use things that have been handed down from family to family, or it's something that every family has something they talk about that they remember at Christmas. And I believe it represents who they are and what is really important. So ritual is part of this transition. It's moving from the person being alive and living life, and then it is dying, and we move from life to death. So we need to help families make a statement of the purpose of what they want to happen in the ritual, and then work at it in several different ways to make it happen. So in the years that I've been a hospice chaplain, I wanted to share with you some of the creativity that I've had the opportunity to do with families. And so I want to share with you, this is one that I did in a mausoleum. And this was a wonderful family friend of mine And so they called me and asked me if I would come to the mausoleum and have a service for this person. And I said, sure. Now, what do you want? Well, we just want some pallbearers to be there to put the casket into the crypt. And we want you to say a few words, and I'm going to say a few words. So I said to the family, why don't we add a touch of music? And they're looking at me like, what? And I said, I have someone that's a really good friend, and she's a wonderful, plays the keyboard just beautifully and sings. Why don't we pay her to come and create music so that as people are coming and they're sitting in these chairs or in this mausoleum, that there's beautiful music playing. And then when I talk and one family member talks, when we're ready to put the casket into the crypt, let her play music and let her sing and let's see what happens. Let me tell you, music makes a big difference. All of a sudden, as the music is playing, there is a feeling of peace that was released within the group. And as they were watching the casket be put into the crypt, the music helped everyone say goodbye. And there was a peace that came into each family member with music. Now, music can be played at a graveside. You might have someone in your family that loves to play the violin. And maybe they come, and as the casket is being lowered into the grave, they might play some beautiful music. It could be someone who plays the piano. It could be someone who has an instrument that is soothing and beautiful and adds. I have found over and over again that when I suggest music and add it as a touch of life, and yes, a touch of death as we're letting go, it softens our hearts. Sometimes it makes us cry, but you know, tears are all right. We need to cry. And it adds a sense of it is well with my soul. And so I wanted you just to see this program where I put some music into it and it added so much love to the whole process of letting go and saying goodbye. So music is a wonderful thing to add. Now I had someone this summer that the mother died and they wanted to do something very special, but they wanted to do something in the park. So they were able to get reserve a place in the park where in the summer it was pretty warm. And they invited all of her friends to come because she loved to play bingo. And everybody got a bingo card and they played several sets of bingo and they had surprises and they honored her and they had cookies and lemonade. And it was such an uplifting experience to do something that this gal that died did on a regular basis. So, how about playing bingo at a memorial service in the park? I thought that was a really wonderful way to express her love for her fun. Now, I had someone else die. Now, this may be very interesting to you, but I did have someone who died who owned a tavern. And I was his hospice chaplain. And he informed me when we talked about the end, he said, I do not want to have any service in honor of me, nothing. And I said, well, why not? Well, because he said, number one, nobody would come, you know, giving me some reasons. And I said, well, let's think about it and we'll talk about it again. Well, he said, okay. So the next time his wife was there, and I said to his wife, you know, he doesn't really want to have any kind of a service. What are you thinking about this? And so she said, well, you know, we have talked. And she said, we have agreed that if you will agree to do this, we'd like to have a memory time for him in his tavern. Oh, I said, that's a wonderful idea. And he did agree to that. And so after he died and things, settled down a little bit, I talked to the wife and said, okay, when do you want to do this? And so we picked a time and we had it be a potluck. And they had a couple big pool tables and said, the announcement said, bring some food. We're all going to eat. And so the people came and they came and they showed up. And so as they put the food out, I would say that there was at least 100 people there. And so we ate. And then what I did is I do this regularly with some families. I lit a candle of love. And I said something like this. We're lighting a candle of love today in honor of, we'll call him Jim. Jim. And I said, we're doing this candle because knowing him made all of our lives different. We appreciated his listening ear, his concern about families. And so we light this candle in honor of his life. It's also a lot about memories that you have talking to him, being with him. But most of all, it's a light of love. And there's a special place in our heart for Jim. And we want to thank you for the gift of living you have given us. Thank you. And then I just said, it's your turn. Why don't you share something about Jim with the group? One after another began to share what a good listener he was. Fun stories about him. Times when things were tough for them and they would come into the tavern and he would listen. And the stories kept coming and coming. And finally, I said to the wife, do you think maybe now it's time for us to close it? If anybody else has more stories, maybe they can share them later. And so I said, everybody pick up your drink. And I said, who wants to make a toast to Jim? And one man stood up and he gave us absolutely wonderful toast to Jim. And we all went, yay, yay, cheer, cheer. And everybody drank. And that was the ending of a very special time. Now, sometimes we think we shouldn't go to the place where they had their work. But that experience taught me that there's no place that's not right for a service. Now, another one that I wanted to talk about was a service when no one came. I met this patient in hospice. She was dying, and her daughter and her daughter's husband had flown in from New York. And they had rented a bed and breakfast to stay in because they wanted to be there until she died. It was about a week later that she took her last breath, and I was there with them. And after we sat for a while and talked, they said to me, it is very important to us to have a funeral service. Would you do it? And I said, of course I'll do it. And so a few days later, we got together and we planned it, and they wanted to spend as much money as possible to make it beautiful. Flowers, programs, and anything that would be a tribute to her. Well, now remember, they're from New York. And all of her friends, the patient's friends, had died. And so I was concerned about this because I wasn't sure anybody was going to show up. So I put a call out to hospice and I said, if anybody has any extra time, could you come and help support this family in their grief? And so the day arrived and everything was in order, and I was with them beforehand and talked to them. And it was time for the service to begin, and no one came. Everybody on the hospice team was too busy with their other things. And so I thought, what am I going to do? So they were sitting in the front row of the funeral home. And so what I did is I just picked up a chair and I sat right in front of them. I didn't stand up, I just sat, took their hands and said, we're just going to open this with just a moment of blessing. And then we're just going to talk about your mom. And we're just going to reminisce and we're going to be thankful for every good story you share. You know, we sat, they talked, they cried. Very meaningful time. And so at the end, I just said a blessing and took their hands again and thanked them for all that I learned about the patient. And when we all stood up, they said to me, thank you for making this so meaningful for us. And that's something I learned, that it's not how many people are there, it's the people that are there that it's for. And it's for to honor the person that died, but to honor that person. So it's not the numbers that makes a difference. It's the heart that began to share. And that's what makes the difference. And that's what makes the service special. And that's why we have services to honor that person and to understand that there is meaning in ritual, there's meaning in loving them, there's meaning in caring for them. You know, somewhere it says if 2 or 3 people gather, he's there. Well, I felt like there were 3 of us, and we were there, and the presence of the Spirit of God was there too. Well, I want to share with you something that I have learned, and I'll tell you how I've learned it, but I have learned that, let's see, where did I put that paper? I've learned how important it is if there's military involved. There are patriots, and patriots come on motorcycles, and they come for free, and they come to anybody who has been in the service, and they, here it is. Anybody who's been in the service, they want to come and pay tribute to the person that died, and they stand at attention as people are coming in, and then they come into the service where it is, wherever it is, if it's in a auditorium, if it's wherever, they show up. And then if there is a casket, then they stand at attention when the casket's coming down, or maybe it's already down there. But they are a wonderful, wonderful gift to anybody who's been in the military. And they have a website, and the website is patriotguard.org. Patriotguard.org. There is a person who, if you need some help, her name is Jessica Ortez, and her phone number, and she said it was all right for me to give it to you, is 209 416 6149. Again, her name is Jessica, 209 416 6149. So if you're interested, and even if for the Patriots to come, before my husband died on his 91st birthday, I had the Patriots come. We had the birthday party in a church because there was going to be a lot of people. And so they came, they sang happy birthday, they brought a flag, one of them had made, and they made the whole birthday party huge success. And so since I knew what a wonderful gift it was for him for his birthday, I invited them to come to his funeral service. So I want to tell you a little bit about Ron. My husband died in March, and we had been married 27 years. We met when I was teaching a grief class, and his wife had died, and he was pretty much full of sorrow and heartache. He Joyce was her name, is her name, and was just retiring from Portland State. She taught on how to be a librarian, and Ron was the dean of the School of Ed, and he had just retired. So they were going to have retirement and do a whole lot of things in life. But unfortunately, Joyce had a heart attack and died in his arms in a birthday party in Estacada. And so he came to the grief class and found out that he needed a lot of help. And so I began to help him. And I found out, later that he had put an ad in the Oregonian. I forgot what they called the ads then, but an ad in the Oregonian, and he had 25 women that answered his ad, and he was going out with all these women. So I thought, this guy's really a neat guy. And so I called him because I had patients out in Estacada. He owned a Christmas tree farm. And I said, hey, Ron, I'm coming out to Estacada. Is there a possibility I could see your Christmas tree farm? Now, I was not a farmer, but he was quite a guy. So I thought, I got to see this farm. So I went out to his farm and I walked into his farmhouse and I thought, this is a great farmhouse. You know what? I'm not a farmer, but I could live here. And so he put me in his red truck and he took me around the 36 acres of the Christmas trees. And just as we were coming back to the house, I said, hey, Ron, I know you're dating and you told me about these women you're going out with. So I said, you know what? I'd like to put my name in the hat. And he was pretty quiet. He didn't know what to say. And so he just stopped the car and I said, well, I think I better get out of here. And so I left. And 3 or 4 days later, he called me and said, hey, are you serious? Are you willing to go out on a date with me? And I said, you bet I am. And so we started dating and we got married on the first day of a cruise. And you have to be connected to a country. So we got married before the cruise left Victoria. Anyway, so one of my goals and one of the reasons that I wanted in the character qualities and the qualities that I wanted in a husband was I wanted to be a good dancer because I love to dance. And so I shared with him the character qualities I was looking for in a husband, and he just chuckled when I said, I want someone that's a good dancer. Well, on one of our dates, we went out, and I found out in a hurry, wow, was he ever a good dancer? And I thought, this is really going to be fun. And so, in our early years that we were married, sounds kind of crazy, but we would dance in the kitchen and have fun. We would dance in our bedroom. We'd turn on some of his favorite music and we would dance the night away. Well, we did go on 27 cruises. And every time we go on a cruise, Ron would check out all the different bands to see which band would be the best for us to go and dance. Now, if you've ever been on a cruise, there's several different kinds of people that dance. There's the professional kind that come with the right shoes, the right outfits, and basically they pretty much take over and show everybody how great they are. Well, that wasn't Ron and Joanne. When he would find just the right band for us, we would go not to make any kind of a message to anybody who is watching. We would just dance. And we would sing. We loved to sing. And he was such a good dancer that it was just a joy to dance with him. And so every cruise that we went on, we always talked about how much we enjoyed dancing together. Well, as our lives moved on, Ron had 3 strokes, and they were mini strokes, but it did cause a change in him. And so, out of the strokes, and he also did have renal failure. Anyway, the doctor had said it was time for him to come into hospice. And so we started our hospice experience. And as the weeks went by, I saw so many changes happening into him. But he was in hospice for almost 2 years, which was really unusual because he just didn't decline as quickly as most of them. And so as his legs began to swell and he could no longer put on his shoes, he had to wear big old heavy socks, and then that was too much. And then some just small socks that I got, and we cut them open because his feet were so swollen. And so one day I said to him, "Hey, Ron, I think we should dance today." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, you think we should dance today?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I know what your favorite song to dance to is, Elvira." And I said, "I got an idea." I said, "Let's just go into the kitchen where there's stools and they're a little bit higher." And I said, "We'll put on the music and let's just dance with our hands, because you can still do some of the motions with your hands. Nope, your feet don't work anymore, but your hands do. So are you open to do that?" Well, he thought that was a great idea. And so I put on the song Elvira, and he loved it. And he was sitting in the chair in the kitchen, and I was just had his hands, and we began to sing it and dance. And so several months before he died, I felt like I should get somebody to come in and video our dance. And so they did. And I kept it. And at the memorial service that we did in the church, I played our last dance. And I want you to see the creativity that I chose to do something that was a tribute to him, and to say again, you are a great dancer. I love you, and I will never, ever forget our dancing together. And so, as a tribute to my husband, and as to give you an idea of something that maybe you would think about doing, that would be a tribute in a different way than maybe ever done before, to have a dance between two people who loved each other very much. And so there should be the music coming on, in case maybe you've never heard of this, but if you have, it's by the Oak Ridge Boys. So here we go.
Elvira, Elvira, my heart's on fire for Elvira. Eyes that look like heaven, lips like cherry wine. That girl can sure enough make my little light shine. I get a funny feeling up and down my spine, 'cause I know that my Elvira's mine. For I'm singing Elvira, Elvira. My heart's on fire for Elvira. Giddy up,
Boom, papa, boom, papa, mow, wow.
giddy up,
Boom, papa, mow, mow.
high on silver airway. Tonight I'm gonna meet her at the Hungry House Cafe, and I'm gonna give her all the love I can. Yes, I am. She's gonna jump and holler last $2. We're gonna search and find that preacher man. And I'll be singing Elvira, Elvira. My heart's on fire for Elvira. Giddy up,
Boom, papa, mau, mau.
giddy up.
Papa, mau, mau.
High on silver stairway. Elvira, Elvira. My heart's on fire. Elvira.
Wow. If you don't think that brought down the house, everybody was crying and they were laughing and clapping, and it added something to the funeral that nobody that I know of has ever done anything like that. So what I wanted you to see is that we can do different things, but let's do them to honor the person for something in their life that they just loved. And so I thank you for being willing to enjoy these moments in my life that I will never forget. Because you know what? Grief is the price you pay for the ability to love. And we love and we keep them in our hearts forever. But those moments that we have are precious and dear, and they do make a difference. Let's see. I was going, how am I doing time-wise?
You're good. We have probably about 10 minutes left if you'd like
Okay.
to use that.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure. So that was some of the creativity that I did at Ron's service. And because he was military, I did have the Patriots there. And I also had the bagpipes there because he loved bagpipes, and I had them play Amazing Grace at the end. But I tried to incorporate everything I could into a service that would last about an hour, because I really knew that people want to be there, but an hour is about all that they can handle. So I wanted to share with you one other time. I was going to share with you one other time before I get into the endings here and the next part. I'm going to share one thing that was was pretty tough. I was doing a graveside service in a little graveside in Malala, and it was raining. I mean, it was raining. And so as the hearse came up with the casket, nope, that's not true. That wasn't true. I have to go back in my story. It was raining, and the casket had already been placed into the grave. And so I came, and they wanted me to do the service, do the service to honor this person, and then they were going to close the grave and put the dirt over it. Well, like I said, it was raining. And so I got out, and the funeral director said to me, you need to be really careful because it's very slippery up there, and I don't want you to slip. And so I got up there. There was about 45 or 50 people, maybe a few more, and their tent was up, and it was raining. And the funeral director told me, stand right here. I did. And there were some wooden slats where he wanted me to stand. I don't know why they figured that out. I don't know. So I stood there, I opened the service and started talking about him. And all of a sudden, I took one step and one of the slats broke. And I started sliding down, and I knew that I was going to be right next to the casket in the deep part of this ceremony. I was going to be down there, and the the funeral director grabbed me as hard as he could, pulled me back, and somehow the slit, the lumber piece that had broken, got a hold of my leg, and blood is running down my leg, and I'm barely standing, and I just keep talking, and I just keep doing the service. And when it was over, I'm bloody all on my leg. And the funeral director said, I thought for sure you'd stop and say, excuse me, I got to take care of myself. But no, he said, you were a trooper. You finished the service and you did a great job. And he said, come on over to the limousine. I've got some, to the hearse. I've got some medicine in there and I can take care of your leg. But that was one of the ones that I will never forget, where I thought I almost ended up in the grave. So, we do have some things that aren't so great and are great, but it is important to know that sometimes we need to finish no matter what. So I just wanted you to know about one of my ones that I never will forget. So I am so believing that we need to have endings. Most of us never want to have an ending. And so I wrote down some things about why do we avoid endings? Well, I think sometimes we avoid them because we hang on too long when we should end something now. So sometimes people wait a long time before they do anything to honor the person because they just hang on. They don't want to let go. And I think a lot of times we don't have endings, so we can have an ending with a service or at least the beginning of an ending. And I think that we're so afraid of what's going to happen. We don't know the future minus the one. And so we're afraid. And because of our fear, we can't move forward. And sometimes we're afraid that we might hurt somebody else. Somebody else might think, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing this now? And so we have to remember that when we're afraid of letting go and the sadness associated with the ending, we think we're never going to be able to move forward. And I know that we have to have an ending before we can have a beginning. And that's important for us to understand. And a lot of times we do not possess the skills on how to do it. And in the classes I teach, I do use different ways to learn how to say goodbye. And as I realized when I was watching the video today of Ron, that I have said goodbye to my wonderful dancing partner. I'm never going to dance with him again, but I have great memories and I'm going to keep those memories forever. So sometimes we don't know what to say, and so we don't say anything. And teaching people to say, this part of our relationship is over and I need to say goodbye, and I can do this through some kind of a ritual that I'm going to do in the service to let go. Necessary endings will improve your personal life. That's true. I have learned that I've had this, but I've had to let go, and now I have this, and my life is changing again. And I guess I have learned that I have been married 3 times, and I can always say, well, the 3rd time was a great time because I learned a lot from what I had, and I invested a lot in what I did now have for the 3rd time, and I've let go. And I appreciate the fact that I can still live life. So I want to help people get comfortable with endings. And Endings are a part of everyday life. And so as we learn to let go of what we've had and move on, there's a special place in our hearts forever for those that we've lost. And I have learned that, and I teach it, and I live it every day. And there's a couple of poems that I use, and one of them is my signature poem. I know it's here somewhere. Maybe it's the one, it's about consolation. Could you pull that up? And then I'm going to do that one before I do the last one. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This is my signature poem that I use in a lot of services. And then the last one I will share that means a lot to me. Where are you going, O child of God? Home. He smiled with a knowing nod. But wait, we need you here, we cried. He paused and turned, and his eyes grew wide. I've taught you in the ways I know, with truth to live and love to grow. Now hold me close in your hearts each day, and love will lead you in the way. The warmth of my smile in the sun's golden rays, my caress touches gently through the gray, misty days. But now the angels call. He sighed, I go in peace to my Father's side. Peace, peace, wonderful peace. Coming down from the Father above, sweep over my soul and let me experience and receive peace. Glitter. Someone said grief is like glitter. It clings to everything. It hides in corners. It slips into your socks. It appears on your fingertips when you're reaching for a glass of water or brushing your hair before bed. It settles in places no one else can see. And sometimes it sparkles, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's true, not because it makes grief prettier, but because it makes it stubborn. Grief does not knock politely and leave when you ask. It spills, it stains, it stays. People imagine grief as a clean wound. Blood, bandage, better. But really, it's a messy room you can't fully clean. A scent that lingers even after all the windows are opened. A sound you keep hearing long after the music stops. Some people lose things they love, books, cities, voices, future plans, and keep walking as if nothing happened. Others crumble at the touch of a sweater sleeve or the sound of their name. There's no proper timeline for learning how to live with what you miss. Some days you do it gracefully. Other days you choke on it. That's still living. And maybe the kindest thing about grief, it's evidence that some things matter. That someone left fingerprints on your heart so brightly, the light still catches on them. That you lived a moment so fully, it echo still finds its way back into your lungs. So, if it hurts, maybe that's okay. You are not weak for remembering. You're not broken for carrying pieces of people with you. That's what makes you real. That's what makes you capable of love. And love, in all its form, is the reason we grieve at all. Grief is the price you pay for the ability to love. Well, thank you for listening and being a part of this. I hope in some way that I've helped you think out of the box and maybe do something a little different. Different doesn't mean bad. Different means creative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. That was lovely. I hope it made a lot of people think outside the box, like you said, about their eventual memorials or memorials they need to plan or thinking of planning for their loved ones. You had shared with us a couple of books that you were willing to give to people at a discounted rate. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. I forgot about that. Yes, I've written a book called How to Say Goodbye. I wrote it 6 years after my first husband died. And then when I married Ron, I asked Kim to write a book about men and grief. They usually sell on the internet for 16, but I want to give you, for being here, an opportunity. If you would buy both of them together, they would be $20. And you would need to go to my email, which is joanne.petrie@bristolhospice.com. Now you can pay for them over PayPal at, I think you showed the number, I think you showed the number of my website. So you can pay for them that way if you want to. But I will be glad to send them to you for no postage, just because I appreciate the work that you do. And I thought that maybe both of the books might help you working with people. So 2 books, you get 2 for $20 and no shipping, but you do need to pay through PayPal, and that's through onetoanother.org. Is that enough help?
Yes, yes. I put it in the chat. They see your email, and just this is a good opportunity for me to let everyone know. Like Susan said, it's being recorded, and that's so people can watch it who weren't able to join us today. And so check our website in about a week. Usually takes me a little while to edit the video and to add some slides. And some of the slides I add are things that maybe we talked about in the chat, or things like Joanne's website and some other information about Joanne's nonprofit, One to Another. Someone has just asked if they could send you a check. I imagine that's okay.
yes.
The address would probably be on the One to Another. But yeah, people could just connect directly with Joanne at the email that's shown on the screen, or at her nonprofit's website, which is One to Another, all spelled out, onetoanother.org.
And they could,
And I will have copies of them with me at when I do All's Well That Ends Well.
I want to say that this idea came up just in our rehearsing for this event. Joanne was proposing to send copies to every participant, and when we sort of said, let's give one away as a door prize, one set away as a door prize, but you'll be ending up with a lot of work and a lot of expense. So we persuaded Joanne that she should she should offer this. So she created a discount with it was never her idea to be promoting her books by speaking, but I just wanted to clarify that because we persuaded her that she should let us all know about her books.
Yes. So I guess we could move on, speaking of door prizes and giving the books away. We'll do that at the end after the question and answer period here. So if you want to ask a question or share a story, we thought yesterday, as we were having our run through a couple of days ago, that it would be really cool if people wanted to share a story about a memorial or a funeral they had or they went to that they thought was really special or unique. Likewise, if you wanted to share something that happened that you thought wasn't so great, that maybe someone could learn a lesson from about a future memorial, we would like to hear that story as well. So you could type it into the chat and we'll read them aloud. If you're having trouble with that, I'm sure we'll have some moments here where we just open it up to questions. Of course, we just don't want everyone trying to speak over each other. So I think I will start, if that's okay, get the ball rolling. And again, as a reminder, we'll pull the door prizes at the end. Joanne, what can people do that planning a memorial is hard. I have mine all planned out already. I have it written down and shared with family. But a lot of people don't share what they'd want, and their family members are left trying to figure things out. A lot of people don't have any money. A lot of people barely are able to put enough money together to get someone cremated. What can people do who need help facilitating a service, but they don't really have any money to spend?
Well, I don't know. It depends on if they can find somebody, somebody in the community that might be willing to do it for free of charge. When they're in hospice, the funeral, the facilitator does not charge. So that's one thing, but not everybody's in hospice. So I don't know if you could find, that's an interesting question. If they go to a church, but maybe they're not religious or they don't want it religious, then maybe they would just have to ask the funeral director for a recommendation. Like maybe somebody who is at the senior, community center. Like I teach at the community center. And if somebody were to come to me and say they couldn't afford much, I would just do it for free, just because I believe people need that. So I would say maybe someone in their friends is really good at facilitating someone. You have to have someone that's a good speaker and is willing to put something together, because it does take time. So maybe a person, like I said, a person at the community center, somebody in their family that's a good speaker. I don't know. That's a good question, but I'm not sure that I can give you much of an answer if they're not involved in something. And there's a lot of people that are. They don't have anybody.
Right. We have, I see in the chat, Elizabeth Fournier. She's the owner and funeral director at Cornerstone Funeral Services and Cremation. Elizabeth, did you say you had something you wanted to share?
Yes. Hi there, all. Great meeting. Something I would love to share is people talk about the concept of Swedish death cleaning and getting rid of their items. And one type of memorial service I've seen lately is people will invite people to the home. They'll gather in the living room. They might play some music, might have some words, and then they'll say, please help yourself to her clothing, help yourself to her plants. Please go in the kitchen and take some cookware. She would love that. So not only are they helping going through and unloading the belongings, but people are taking home something valuable and wonderful and a great memento of their wonderful friend. So I think that's a real beautiful new sort of type of memorial service people are having.
That's a great idea. And you could do that and not have a lot of expense. And maybe just have one person, say, well, we're doing this in honor of them. And that's a great idea. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Like you said, your story of sharing, you shared with us about having it at the pub. It was a potluck. So that's probably another great way if you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of money to spend, is open it up as a potluck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I don't see any. I see lots of positive comments in the chat, Joanne, about your presentation. A lot of people said they learned a lot, and they thought it was a remarkable presentation. So that's lovely. I have Jane S. who'd like to share a story. Jane, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to thank you, Joanne. This has been a really fruitful and wonderful sharing. So thank you. I wanted to share the memory of when my mother had a funeral. At her funeral, it was all of her 8 children came to the funeral, and my father hired a priest in the area. And the priest, and it was just the immediate family in the church. And the priest just cracked jokes the whole time. And my father got a lot of enjoyment out of it, but the rest of us thought we should have actually had an opportunity to stand up and speak just to our family members how much what our mother meant to us. But this man was putting on kind of a relief show that just left us all hurt, but it was useful for my father. So I guess something came out of it.
Interesting. That's interesting.
But when you say that, yes, at times the service can be hijacked in a sense.
Yeah, that's true. It can be.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. A little bit along those same lines, Joanne, how have you dealt with it when you've been the facilitator for a memorial or funeral, when family members want to see a different type of service? Someone wants music, someone doesn't. Someone wants it to be jovial and light, someone wants it to be serious and dark. How have you helped families facilitate and come to a happy medium, I hope?
Well, I think it takes a lot of discussion. And so, when I get a family together, I'll say, so this is what you want, and this is what you want. Where can we bring this to a balance? If you really want something in there that's pretty dark, maybe a dark song, and they don't want that, okay, how can we come to agreement in the middle? And that takes a lot of discussion. And some of them don't want to budge a minute, and some of them are willing to. So it just takes listening to them and trying every way I know to bring it around to something that's going to be okay for all of them. There was one that I did not too long ago, and they didn't want any flowers. One person didn't want any flowers, and the other person said, well, I want flowers. Well, I don't want them. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we decided that the one that wanted the flowers could buy some flowers and take them to her home and use them in honoring her mother, and there would be no flowers at the service. I mean, see, it takes, you just have to talk to people and see how you can work it out. It's not easy.
Yes. And we, as our organization, one of the things we advocate for is for people, to plan ahead of time for their end of life. And doing that and writing it down and talking about it with your family members, it helps avoid those situations, right? If you are telling your family, this is what I like to see, then hopefully they'll respect that and agree on that. And then they don't have to fight amongst themselves after the fact.
It's not fun to,
Right.
it's not fun to try to figure out an argument, how to end an argument.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, and feelings transcend law, but in Oregon, we do have the protection of the law siding with the person that is appointed as their funerary um, advocate. And so if there was a real dispute, if you've named a person and said what you wanted, their opinion and that you named them to do this is on your side. But it's the feelings that we've got to work through, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of feelings.
Mm.
I find the best way to do that is with food. I try to bring cookies and ice cream if I know it's going to be really intense. That sounds crazy, but I do try to bring food
Mm.
just to say, okay, let's have some ice cream and cookies and then let's talk. That makes it a little easier. But people are very opinionated.
Couple things. You can take food ahead of time to the home, which is usually pretty appreciated, but you need somebody to keep track of all the food that's coming into the home. And the other thing is you can have a pre-death memorial service
Hmm.
where you're there to have fun with the people that you want to be at your memorial. So you can share stories from your own past and they can share stories of your past with them. And that's kind of a fun, different way to celebrate your life.
Yes, that's really true. I did do one before he died, and we had 400 people there. And it was simply to do memories and do all this. And he was a patriot, and it was really wonderful. And then we did have one when he died. But that's true. That's really true. Thank you.
Kathy lives at Willamette View, and Kathy, I think you could probably spend hours talking about all the various memorials that you've been to. I know you've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Somebody asked you to please make some comments comparing, I think that was supposed to be the word, comparing grief in men versus women. Is that right, Bonnie? Is that the question?
Men like to talk about things. Women like to talk about what's happening. Men like, you get men together, even though there's been a death, they'll start talking about football and everything else, but talking about what has just happened. And women, we start talking right now about our feelings. This is how we feel about all this is sad, this is that. And they're over there talking about the football game because basically men need to go into their cave. They want to be alone. They don't need anybody around. They need time alone to do some processing. And so that's some of what I've seen. And in the support group that I have, that I teach, it's very interesting. I break them up into groups and they talk about their feelings. And it's not easy for them to talk about their feelings. I have this page of feelings, and they'll maybe circle something that's very positive, and a woman in the group is saying sad, lonely, all this, and so they have to have time alone sometimes to work out their pain by themselves. I used to give Ron when he would be, we would have a loss. I'd say, well, it's time for you to go in your cave and I'm going to come back and see how you're doing in an hour. And if you're still need more time, I'll give it to you. But, it's amazing. They want to be alone. And if they do talk to another man and are honest, that's helpful. But they don't do that very well.
Mm.
They need to be around some women that can get it started and talk about their feelings, and then they'll start talking.
Did you want to talk a little bit and share with the group, Joanne, about your support groups?
Well, I do have one at the senior center. I think they call it the Pioneer Center in Oregon City, and I do it twice a month, and it's from 1:30 to 3, and it's on the second and fourth Thursdays of every month. And people come from all over, and some of them stay a long time because they say this is not a group for people who don't want to move forward, because that's what I try to do. I try to help them. I honor where they are, and then I try to give them tools to move forward, because it doesn't help for them just to keep talking about their loss, their loss, their loss, but I want to give them a tool, one tool to take with them that day on paper and maybe in their head to help them make one step towards healing. The group that I have, it runs anywhere from 15 to 25, and it's free. And I've seen a lot of healing come from the group as they've decided to reinvest their life. Um, we always serve cookies and water, and twice a year in the summer, I have a picnic, and at Christmas, I have a Christmas party at the senior center. And they all bring $5 gifts, gift cards, and I give them out to the homeless. Because you have to remember, I'm in the community all the time as a hospice chaplain. And so I see lots of homeless people. So as their gift to Christmas, then they bring me gift cards and then I give them out. And it's just a privilege to be able to do that from people who are grieving. It's a very positive group, but it's a place where they really do work through their grief. I don't know. Is that any help?
Yes, two people needed some clarification. Could you repeat the time and date of the group and then where the group sessions take place in Oregon City?
Okay, they take place at the Pioneer Center in Oregon City. It's on my webpage, I'm pretty sure. I don't think. Anyway, I'd have to move to go get the paper to says where it is. But we meet on the second and fourth Thursday every month, the second and fourth. So we just had one on Thursday. And we meet from 1:30 to 3. It should be on my webpage. Do you want me to go in the other room and get one just to tell you when the next one is?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, people can look. I put it in the chat. And again, it'd be on your website, right?
2 weeks from now.
onetoanother.org.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
It'll be right before Halloween, I think.
Yeah, I think I could look and see. I think you're right. Just a second, I have to get my calendar. Let's see, October. We met on the 10th, so we'll meet on the 24th.
24th, someone wrote the 23rd.
Oh, let's see, 23rd.
23rd. Yep. 23rd. Thank you,
Yep.
Jane S. October 23rd.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Good.
And I start on time. So if people think, oh, I can just show up anytime, that's not true. I start on time. I have an agenda. And so if you come in late, it disrupts everything. So I think that promptness is the prince of politeness. So I just appreciate people coming. I always say, come a few minutes early, get to know somebody, and then be involved.
Mm.
And you don't get a cookie if you come late, right?
No, there's usually cookies if you're late, but I really start on time and I end on time.
Great.
So people know that this is the time.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of ending on time, we should be thinking, are there any other questions burning bright?
And I'm sure, Joanne, if people think of questions afterwards, they could connect with you via email.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been a moving presentation as well as very meaningful.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Now we're going to do some door prize.
Door prizes. So
Sure.
let's see. Oh gosh, how did I do this last time? I'm all the way at the end again. Sorry about that. I flipped to the very end. Okay, so we have this is a door prize. Susan, if you want to tell them a little bit about this book, and I will.
This is a book about end-of-life planning and funeral planning, and it's very humorous, but it's got tips and lessons in it, we have enjoyed displaying this when we are promoting OMA's work and our All's Well That Ends Well workshops. We thought it would be a good thing we could order and mail to whoever wins this prize. So this is Roz is a comedian and talks about trying to persuade her parents to move and get rid of stuff and make plans and how difficult that was, but really important lessons. So,
and how I was going to pick a winner since we can't really draw out of a hat. I was just going to ask my phone here to pick a number between 1 and it looks like there's 30 people still attending, and I'll count down and I'll see whose name wins. Okay, Google, pick a number between 1 and 30. Number 6. Bonnie. And I don't have a last name. Bonnie, can you identify yourself, please?
yes, okay.
Bonnie.
It's really Bill
Bill, of course, it's Bill. We talked
on
about this.
Bonnie's what website or web position.
Yeah.
And Bill happens to be a board member of OMA. And for that reason, and I have access to that book, I want you to draw a name, another person.
All righty, will do.
It is.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Google, pick a number between 1 and 30. Oh my gosh, it just picked, somebody switched around and it picked you again, Bill. That's hilarious. One more time. That is so funny. Okay, Google, pick a number between 1 and 30. Okay, 13, unlucky 13. Let's see. Donna. Donna Delicat.
Oh, yes, I see her. Yes.
I think, Donna, you're a member. So I think, is that correct, Donna?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. So I'll connect with you and I will have the book delivered straight to your address. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And then we wanted, like we said, Joanne agreed to send, this is another door prize we'll have. It's the combo pack of both of these books. Let's see what luck I have this time. Okay, Google, pick a number between 1 and 30. 21. Okay, let me do that countdown. I have Kathy in Corvallis, Oregon. No last name. Could you identify yourself, please?
Kathy Sandstrom.
Kathy Sandstrom. Oh, good. I was able to let you in at the last minute. I thought you were able to come. Okay, great. All right. So, Kathy, if it's okay with you, I'll connect with you and get your address and send you these 2 books, or I'll work with Joanne to have her send you these 2 books.
Thank you.
And thank you, Joanne, for donating those as a door prize.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right.
And now, that's an example of AI helping us. Part of my hesitation as I was talking was that I kept having messages from AI offering to do things right in the middle of my screen. And I'm such a verbose person. I wanted to use a script and not get too far off. But AI has helped us pick our door prizes anyway, so, well, of a sort. But we do appreciate our sponsors and appreciate the funds that they have provided in connection with this, because Margot spends a lot of time around the annual meeting getting this all pulled together. We appreciate it very much. Clearstone Memorial Partners and Kai Perm and the Dan Volker team. Do go to that website and do support these sponsors. Thank you. And we appreciate all of you who have attended and stuck with it to the end, and look forward to working with you and hearing from you in response to our appeal for volunteers, I hope. Keep in touch with us and do visit the website periodically. That's where we can update our information, and you can find the any providers that we add or change, any of the pricing that's on there. Please also look at some of the past presentations. Our friend Elizabeth, who's been attending, Elizabeth Fournier, had an excellent presentation there. So we do have those posted and hope you'll make use of them. Thank you and see you again soon.
This is not the end, is it?
It
Susan?
is the end of our meeting.
Of the meeting. What about the workshops? We're going to just make a little plug for the upcoming workshops.
One of our volunteer trainers is reminding me. Yes, we should do that. We are having several All's Well That Ends Well workshops coming up soon, and they are 2 on Zoom. October 28th is our next one. It's a Tuesday, and that one is in the evening, isn't it?
Right, yes.
And then in Southeast Portland, Kathy is doing one in person on November 7th. December 4th, Thursday in the morning, we'll be doing online via Zoom. And then again in December, we want to do those before the holidays so that people will have no excuse. And that will be in Southeast Portland, also done by Kathy.
The November 7th one will be held at Westmoreland Union Manor. And the December 6th one will be held at Willamette View Retirement Community.
Good.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up.
Didn't have the room there.
And we are going to have a presentation from a hospice in January. Is it the 29th?
Yes, let me double check.
I think.
It's the 29th at 6:30. It will also be via Zoom, and it will be, yes, about hospice, just who, what, when, where, all information about hospice.
6 p.m. you said?
6:30.
6:30, I think.
30. It'll start at
Yeah.
6:30. It's a Thursday evening, January 29th. And you'll see it posted on our website. And hopefully everyone here that's still left has been receiving our quarterly newsletters via email or e-newsletters. If not, there's a place to sign up for them on our website, or of course you can just email us at omaoregon@gmail.com.
Good
If
job.
anybody would like to sponsor or make a suggestion about having an All's Well That Ends Well workshop in your area, please let Margot know and she will pass the information to me and we will get it scheduled for you.
Yeah.
So that would be a big help to me and to us. Thank you.
Yes, Kathy's done both workshops at a specific spot suggested by people, which has been really helpful, especially if that person can help us with the logistics of setting it up in a certain spot. She's also done workshops for a specific group. We had a woman that her and all her book club wanted a special presentation. We hope you can get at least about maybe 10 people to come to the workshop at least when we do those special ones just for your group. But that's another opportunity, your church group, your community group, all your families, if you have a large family, if you have a large family, all your family members. So there's also opportunities to schedule one that way as well.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Margot. You have done a wonderful job preparing our slides and keeping us on track and helping to prepare and let everyone in today.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Okay, honey. Thank you. Bye.